bulbs and things like that.
Yeah, he's a devotee. We use whatever we have. We use it as a stepping stone to get closer to Krishna and the Vaishnava, just like Nitai Chand.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to see you. Good morning. Thank you, Ananda Vihari Prabhu, for this opportunity. Every time, it's just a great joy and honor to be able to join everybody. Oh yeah, Kartik Prabhu said, "Hang some butter from the ceiling." Yeah, that that would be a good test. That would be a good test of
And
using
give
these
him like
stepping stones.
yeah, put some butter and give him a stick.
Yeah, yeah, this is a good idea. So, so nice to see you all. And we will go ahead and enter into our verses. I just wanted to confirm, Ananda Bihari Prabhu, that I got this right. It's 10, 51, 50, and 51. Yes. Okay. Good news. Okay. So we'll go right ahead. I'll share screen here. Good morning, everyone. So here we go. So we're returning to the words of Sri Muchukunda. Share the screen here. Everyone see this all right? Okay. Oh, okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Ura right there, Hema Parishkritaish Charan Matam Gajerva Naradeva Samgitaha Sa eva kalena duratyayena te Kale varovit krimi bhasma samgitaha. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The body that at first rides high on fierce elephants or chariots adorned with gold, and is known by the name King, is later, by your invincible power of time, called feces, worms, or ashes. Purport. In the United States and other materially developed countries, dead bodies are cosmetically disposed of in a tidy, ceremonial way. But in many parts of the world, old, sickly, and injured people die in lonely or neglected places where dogs and jackals consume their bodies and transform them into stool. Hare Krishna. And if one is so blessed as to be buried in a coffin, one's body may very well be consumed by worms and other minuscule creatures. Also, many earthly cadavers are burned and thus transformed into ashes. In any case, death is certain, and the ultimate fate of the body is never sublime. That is the real purport of Muchakunda's statement here, that the body, though now called king, prince, beauty queen, upper middle class, and so on, will eventually be called stool, worms, and ashes. Srila Sridhar Swami quotes the following Vedic statement: Yonehe sahasrani bahuni gatva dukena labdvapi cha manushatvam sukavaham yena bhajanti vishnum tevai manushyatmani shatrubhutaha. After passing through many thousands of species and undergoing great struggle, the conditioned living entities finally obtain the human form. Thus, those human beings who still do not worship Lord Vishnu, who can bring them real happiness, have certainly become enemies of both themselves and humanity. Okay, we'll carry on to the next verse. Just trying to. Okay. Nirjitya dik chakram adbhuta vigraho Varasanasta samaraja vanditaha griheshu maitunya sukeshu yoshitam krida mriga purusha ishaniyate. Translation. Having conquered the entire circle of directions and being thus free of conflict, a man sits on a splendid throne, receiving praise from leaders who were once his equals. But when he enters the women's chambers where sex pleasure is found, he is led about like a pet animal, O Lord. Okay. The screen is no longer being shared, right? Is it back to normal now?
No, we still see it.
Oh, okay. There we go. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. So thank you all so much. We sincerely seek all of your blessings, well wishes, so that we may have meaningful dialogue this morning that is pleasing to our Guru, to Srila Prabhupada, to our lineage, and ultimately to Shri Shri Radha Krishna. So we pray for your blessings, that we may speak in a way that's faithful to what we've been given, and that we may honor the fact that we've been given this opportunity to speak by the mercy of our spiritual master. So these are quite intense verses. Let's call them what they are. They're very intense verses that really rattle our conception of what life in this world is all about, right? And very important for us to have contact with these heavy words, actually. Though they may feel jarring in some way, it's very wonderful in a sense that, just like if you have a container of water that has sediment at the bottom, it's only when you shake that container of water that you can see what's been there all along, lingering on the bottom of the container. So in that way, sometimes when we hear astounding statements like this, it has a way of shaking us up in a very favorable way, actually, where we are made more conscious of whatever conditioning may be there, of the ground that we still have to cover in spiritual life, the mercy that we're so deeply in need of, and also that this material world is most certainly not the end all be all. So these statements have a very powerful way of doing this for us and reminding us, and consequently reminding us on the positive side of our true nature. Because both of these verses, so the first deals highly with bodily identification, the fact that we identify so strongly with body and furthermore with mind, position, so many upadis, false designations that we come to sort of put on like a suit, right? It's like each morning, sometimes we can do this, where it's like you're like putting on each one like a garment, like I have this family, I live in this place, this is my career, this is my position, this is my position in my spiritual community. This is, it's so easy to do that, to kind of like put it on like a suit of armor. Yeah, someone, Ananda Vihari Prabhu wrote meat suit, which is certainly like, again, a very strong, way of looking at this. So it's very good to remind ourselves that yes, we have temporary designations in this world, which may be all right if we find a meaningful way to engage them. As Ananda Bihari Prabhu was saying earlier, like stepping stones, stepping, like a step stool toward our real identity. Oh, Bhima Prabhu. So everyone's getting into like really the weeds here. This is good. So Bhima Prabhu said, flesh puppet. Yeah. So there are a lot of really we can say strong, jarring ways of looking at this. So our temporary designations are all right, um, as long as we're still cognizant of our eternal nature. And for the extent to which we strongly identify with our temporary designations, we are really very strongly impeding ourselves on the spiritual path, and we're risking misusing this human birth. So something very incredible about this human birth is that we have the opportunity to really enter into spiritual contemplation, to enter into spiritual practice, to receive the mercy of pure devotees. Um, Other forms of life, like animal life, we don't have quite the same facility. The same level of intelligence may not be there. The same level of mental capacity, discrimination may not be there. The same um, ability to be in touch with these deep questions of who am I? What is my purpose in this world? What is my relationship to the divine? Those same questions may not be present in the animal kingdom or other species of life. So there is something deeply precious about this human birth. So this first verse is speaking about bodily identification, whereas the second is speaking about, which is also, part of the deal with bodily identification, is the intense power of lustful desire, of sex desire, and how that can really derail um, our sobriety when it comes to understanding our spiritual nature and seeking to make spiritual progress. So sex desire, and also we can extend that to all desire, all selfish desire has the potential to really derail our sense of uh, urgency also in spiritual life, right? When we see that this world is a place of suffering, we tend to become a little bit sober. And we say, okay, I have to deepen my spiritual connection. I need to really avail myself of the mercy that's been given to me so causelessly. But then things kind of get nice again, and things can happen in our lives where we kind of forget that reality and we become more absorbed in a temporary designation or a temporary situation. So both of these verses are detailing those dangers in a very intense way. So Krishna, in his form as time, he inevitably leads us to this realization, whether we do it in a sort of voluntary way or in an involuntary way. We do come to realize that our bodily pleasures and even the beauty or efficacy of our bodies are that those things are quite fleeting. So Krishna, he says, "Time I am" in Bhagavad Gita, and he describes um, that the annihilation is going on at all times. So annihilation may be discussed on a grand scale, like something like annihilation of the world or of a universe, but also we're undergoing, you can say, in our material state, we're undergoing a gradual annihilation. And what's very interesting is that this can help to remind us, as long as our identification is with spirit, I am spirit soul, as Srila Prabhupada emphasizes so many times, then actually the gradual annihilation of our material self or our material situation can actually really help us to take shelter and encourage us to render devotional service and allow these false designations to gradually fall away. But on the other hand, if we are upholding a bodily designation and we're upholding a deep identification with the body, then it's very distressing. It's a very distressing position because we get the sense of, I'm falling apart. I'm losing everything. And if we identify with the body, we will feel that we are falling apart. But if we have the opportunity to cultivate this identification with the soul, with our true nature, then we'll be able to say, yes, the body is falling apart. And this is difficult. It's still painful. It's still something that that deserves empathy. But at the same time, we hope that that deeper identification will also sustain us and keep us cognizant of our real position. So um, I'll read one quotation here. This is coming from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchyate. The translation of this is originally coming from Narada Pancharatra. Bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all the senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. So this is a very encouraging note. We're thinking so much about all of these identifications, but right here we have in Shastra that engaging in devotional service actually takes care of both issues that are being presented in these verses here. So we're freed from our temporary material designations, and we are also purified on the level of the senses. So in other words, our unfavorable or unflattering sensory entanglements gradually become taken care of by virtue of devotional service, by Krishna's mercy. So this is a very encouraging point to think about, and all the more reason to take seriously our engagement in devotional service. So ultimately, we're engaging in devotional service ultimately for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. That's the real purpose. But other than that, we do have, as it's said here, they're presented rightly as side effects, right? So they're presented in the sense that that's not our main goal, but we do understand and trust that by virtue of devotional service, we will be freed from these entangling circumstances. So also when we attain a high position in this world, so in the verse here the example is given as king, and in the purport it says prince, beauty queen, upper middle class. It takes it into the modern world. Just these different kind of flattering designations we can be assigned with or assigned to ourselves. So sometimes when we attain a high position or great material happiness in this world, which is a rare thing, but it does happen, when we attain that, it can be even harder to seek spiritual shelter because the designations that we are trying to shake, we may not even wish to shake because they are rare and coveted in this world. So many of us, on the material platform, we spend our whole life just chasing wealth or fame, things like that. But for those who actually attain that, those rare people who actually do get a taste of that, can be even harder to seek spiritual shelter because they feel everything's great, everything's fine. I have what everybody else in the world is yearning for. But also some very fortunate personalities. We have some examples of, even in our own movement of people who came from a very wealthy background or came from a background of fame. Certainly there's like famous example of George Harrison. So a personality like that who is able to attain those heights that so many people yearn for yet at the same time also see through it and see that it's not everything. That's a very fortunate person and a very rare person. So we understand that even the most favorable, outwardly favorable material situation is still a temporary one and will still dwindle and come to an end. Um, who was it? Was it Alexander the Great? The story of how he was placed in a casket, and the casket was taken through the city, and he had it arranged so that his hands could be extending out of the sides of the casket like this, so that everyone in the city could see his point that, although he was the king, although he was the ruler, he's leaving this world with nothing. So, in that sense, we understand that even the highest material position will ultimately come to an end. So, we understand that death is inevitable for the body. Maharaj Yudhisthira, Srimad Bhagavatam, it's described. I'll read the word for word here because it's so important to hear. So this is in the purport. Srila Prabhupada says, hundreds and thousands. So Yamaraj once asked Maharaj Yudhisthira, what is the most wonderful thing within this world? Maharaj Yudhisthira replied, and the translation is, hundreds and thousands of living entities meet death at every moment, but a foolish living being nonetheless thinks himself deathless and does not prepare for death. This is the most wonderful thing in the world. So Maharaj Yudhisthira makes this reply that though we see death around us at all times, though we have experiences of losing loved ones in our life, and we see that this world is a place where no one gets out alive, you can say. Of course, on the level of the soul, everyone gets out alive, but materially speaking, no one gets out alive. So that we continue to deny our own mortality in that sense. Maharaj Yudhisthira explains that this is one of the most wondrous, most incredible things in this world. So in Krishna consciousness, we speak about death quite a bit, actually. And some people may find that to be a challenging point. Some will say, oh, it's so morbid, spending so much time dwelling on death. But being conscious of the reality of death, and this is also what is brought out by examining verses like this, being conscious of the reality of death is not necessarily morbid or negative. It can be done in a healthy way, where it actually inspires us to live more deeply. It inspires us to live more meaningfully. Even in secular culture, we have statements like this, like "live every day like it's your last," right? These aphorisms that remind us that being aware of our mortality, being aware of death, can actually be deeply inspiring in the sense that we tend to see the gift of the time that we have. We tend to see the gift of this human life. We tend to see a very healthy kind of trajectory that we're seeking in our life. It can deepen our sense of dependence and prayer as well. So we don't want to spend our lives, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in his Bhajan, Arunodaya Kirtan. He says, you spend your days decorating your bodies. So we don't want to necessarily, of course, it may literally be happening that we have to, do certain things to dress or decorate, but we don't want to be absorbed in that on the level of, our full consciousness that this is what we need to do. We're trying to also seek the wonderful qualities that we see in pure devotees. We're trying to aspire in that direction in our own small way. These are ornaments. These are real ornaments, these Vaishnav qualities. So we're trying to aspire in that direction, that by Krishna's grace, we may develop an attraction for these ornaments, and as time goes on, aspire to take that up in our own humble way. So in modern society, as is explained in this purport, the purport to the first verse, death is often hidden away or sanitized because everyone has a fear of death. And that fear of death actually extends from something quite wonderful. The fear of death actually originates from the fact that the soul is eternal. We can actually feel on some level that death is artificial or unnatural for us on a deeper level. So if we understand that the soul is eternal, we can actually be alleviated from that fear of death on some level, although it's a progressive, thing for different people. Everyone has their own experience with that. So Srila Prabhupada explains this very nicely in a lecture in New York, April 15th, 1966, so right around the corner from the Bhakti Center. Srila Prabhupada said, now suppose somebody says, "Oh, I shall kill you." Somebody becomes very much afraid. But a person who is situated in pure consciousness, he's not afraid. We've got a very practical example in the life of a great philosopher, Greek philosopher, Socrates. He believed in the immortality of the soul, and he was offered hemlock poison, that if you believe in immortality of the soul, then you drink this poison. Socrates says, "Yes, I shall drink it." So he drank it, and his body, of course, stopped functioning because poison will act. But he was not afraid of drinking poison because he was completely situated in that platform. So there is no fear. As Prabhupada says, so long bodily conception of life is there, fearfulness will always be there proportionately. As much as I get rid of this bodily conception of life, then my fearfulness also decreases. And so long as I am absorbed in bodily conception of life, my fearfulness is greater. So this is the experience that we have. So the second verse that we looked at today speaks specifically about lustful desires and the power that desire can have over us. So we see so many times in modern society that even those who are in positions of great power, they may still be very powerless in the face of desire. And this leads to scandals and a lot of complexity and a lot of loss of composure. So we have so many examples of this, of politicians or people who are in great positions of influence becoming entangled by lust in different ways. And that creates very unflattering and scandalous circumstances. So similarly, for those of us who may not necessarily be in positions of fame or influence, the same way we can find ourselves sabotaged or unfavorably drawn through life if we are too much entangled in these desires. So in chapter 3, Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita just the mechanism by which lust really overtakes the intelligence and leads us in so many different directions, and that this is what actually keeps us bound to this world. But in the same chapter, Krishna provides the means by which we can strive to understand lust and to overcome it. So he explains, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So in other words, we need to find a higher taste. It's not just that we can let go of these things without connecting to something deeper, to connecting to something that actually enchants us more. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in one of his writings, I need to find the exact reference, but he describes how we will all be visited by lustful thoughts, by selfish thoughts, and to not be disturbed by that. The key, he says, is to not welcome those thoughts. So in other words, it may come and we observe, okay, yeah, this thought is drifting by, but we're trying not to say, oh, great, let's delve into this. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in so many of his bhajans, he takes such a humble position, although he's a pure devotee, and he speaks about his own struggles. He takes this position and speaks about struggles as a practitioner. And he talks about, in one, he says, why do offensive thoughts come to me when I chant your names? So even in chanting Krishna's names, we may be visited by thoughts that are very unfavorable. thoughts that haunt us in different ways. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur so humbly, so beautifully describes that. And in doing so, it's very cooling. It has a very cooling effect, I can say, for those of us who do struggle in this way, to hear Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur just name that for what it is, that we may be visited by unfavorable thoughts. And then, of course, whatever situations we may experience in this life of being entangled in this way, by Krishna's mercy, there are ways out, and we may experience gradually or suddenly a paradigm shift. So there's the example of Hirabai, who is the prostitute who visited Haridas Thakur with an aim to tempt him in some way. And Haridas Thakur, of course, the Namacharya, was chanting. And he said, yes, yes, no problem, we can discuss, but let me finish my chanting first. So he's chanting, and of course, chanting many, many, many names for a very long period of time. And she's becoming impatient. But by the purity of Haridas Thakur's chanting, she also experiences a change of heart, ultimately became a pure devotee. Another example is Pingala. This is in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. She is also working in this way as a prostitute. And she starts to lament that, oh, I'm so anxious for everyone's money. I'm anxious that a rich person will come as a customer. And she says, my customers, they themselves are objects of pity. I'm looking to them for my well-being. I'm looking to them as though, they control in my destiny, but they themselves are objects of pity. And she ultimately has this incredible vision where she sees the bones, the spinal cord, the ribs, the arms and legs of her body as a house with beams and cross beams and pillars. And she has this incredible vision by which she realizes that she's living for something very temporary. And she sees her anxiety, and she becomes very detached and very peaceful. And she dedicates her life to the Lord's service. And she's eager to experience real happiness. And then it describes in Srimad Bhagavatam how after having that vision, she very peacefully goes to sleep and enters this new phase of her life. So these are some thoughts in the direction of these very intense verses, but it's really important for us to also contemplate these things because they're a reality for us as practitioners on the spiritual path, and important to be able to speak about these things and to really be cognizant of our true nature, at least as an ideal that we wish to remember this as we go through our lives. And that will make a world of difference. And that can be something very, very wonderful that basically creates space for what we wish to really meditate upon, which is the mercy of the devotees, the mercy of Krishna, Krishna's beautiful form, quality, activities, names. So in this way, we're trying to clear space so we can be conscious of that which takes up space, and to pray that gradually, as time goes on, the scales can tip in the other direction. So we thank you all so much, and very much eager to hear everyone's reflections. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dina Bandhu Prabhu. Such a wonderful class. You brought up this wonderful personality in our lineage, Namacharya, Srila Haridas Thakur. And when Srila Haridas Thakur left this world, left his body, Sri Chaitanya personally carried the body of Haridas Thakur to the ocean, bathed it, worshipped it, and personally buried it in the sand. I was just listening to Radhanath Swami's class yesterday on this subject. And Haridas Thakur, Lord Chaitanya was so impressed by Haridas Thakur's devotion and dedication to chanting that he instructed him to ask for benediction. He told him, now you should ask for benediction. And Haridas Thakur, what did he say? He said, I want nothing. I want nothing. But then Sri Chaitanya said, I understand that you want nothing, but if you want to please me, you should ask for benediction. So he got him to ask for benediction. And this is what Srila Haridas Thakur asked for. Let me be born in every birth in such a place where I get the remnants of the food that has been left from the plate of your devotee. Let that wealth be mine, the remnants of the food of your devotees. Let me be born as a dog or an insect in the vicinity of your devotee's home. So when they throw the scraps and remnants in the dustbin, I will get to eat it. Then Haridas became very ashamed and said, My Lord, I have no right to ask you for such an exalted benediction like this. Please forgive me. Trinada Pisuni Chinatarora Pisa Hishnuna Amadina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. Just wanted to share that since you talked about Haridas Thakur.
Thank you so much, Ananda Vihari Prabhu. Beautiful, beautiful to hear, and to hear your appreciation of these pastimes. Thank you.
Damodar Priya.
Yes, thank you so much, Dina Bandhu, for this class. And I was, when I saw that you were giving class after me, I was just like, oh, that's so great, because we delved into the topic of Krishna in his aspect as deaf yesterday during my class, and how we can either go into it with fear or we can go into it with loving and acceptance. And it came up in the chat that people said, like, devotees like Ganesham Das Prabhu, who's also a chaplain, and then yourself, would have so many maybe stories to share with us of your experiences of either helping people who were able to go into death with like loving acceptance, or how did you support people who maybe were going into it fearfully? Whatever you feel comfortable sharing, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Damodar Priya Devi. And I wanted to say I'm very eager to listen to your class. I wasn't able to tune in yesterday morning live, but I'm really looking forward to hearing that class. So yes, definitely. In the particular line of work, you do get to encounter and be with many people at the end of life. And definitely what you find is that it's really helpful to offer a listening ear to people. And for those who are not able to outwardly speak, just to offer a very caring presence and to really be with them. Because what we find sometimes is, again, like just as a product of our fear of death as a society, even family members, sometimes they can't comfortably be there. So almost to show the person that you're still very beautiful, there's still something, you're still a great person to be with right now. I'm so happy to be with you. And to not have this fear and to have this kind of distant feeling toward them. Sometimes you may see family members, I'm just speaking very frankly, you may see family members in the room having side conversations while someone is dying to alleviate their own discomfort. It's not, I don't say it with judgment, it's just something that you see sometimes. And so to be with a person and to say, I'm comfortable here with you. You're a lovable person. It's wonderful. I feel grateful for the opportunity to be with you at this very sacred moment. That's, whether we say it outwardly or whether it's just trying to offer that kind of presence, that is something that we can strive to do. And then also just to say that you do see people at different levels of peace with what's going on. Sometimes people are very peaceful, very grateful, humorous even. It's really sweet to see. And then you see people who have various levels of anger and remaining attachment or feeling that they have unfinished business. And I find that those who are actually able to share about that, they're in a better space than they think they are. Because when it's happening just silently, that's when you really see that there's just a lot that the person is carrying in a very heavy way. But hopefully by giving some avenue by which they can share it, they're also relieved of that on some level. And it's like Jeffrey Ackler said here in the comments, really appreciate this, Prabhu. Like you said, is it not also very necessary to deeply feel the emotional connection to our humanness, to fully appreciate this human birth, right? So that's important too, right? Just to experience the humanity of that. I'm scared. I don't know what's next. I feel, angry about this. All of these things are very human experiences, and to honor that also, and to remove some of the guilt that may be there. Some people may feel guilty even for being angry about, being ill or, having the end of their life ahead of them. So to alleviate some of that guilt just by normalizing these feelings can be a really important thing to do. So, but yeah, I feel very grateful to have been able to accompany people at the end of life. It's not something I actually do so much these days. These days, I'm more with people in mental health setting, but it's a very sacred moment, and we can feel that. We can feel Krishna's presence in these moments. So, yeah, thank you for asking that question. And okay, let's see. Anyone else? Any thoughts? I'm looking here in the chat too. So many great comments from everybody.
Martine wrote in the chat, as hard as it can be to accompany someone in their last moments in this world, I have found it a gift and an honor to be by their side. So very much like what you shared.
Yeah, thank you so much, Martine. Thank you for offering that service. Yeah, it's again, like this reminder that we get to do this. We get to do this. We get the opportunity. And same, I mean, so many things in spiritual life, right? That we can kind of say, oh, okay, I'm going to do this service, or I have to go to do this service, whatever it might be. But to remind ourselves, oh, we get to do this. So that's really a great way to kind of recenter. Yes, Jeffrey Ackler, Prabhu.
Haribol, Prabhu. Thank you for the class. I was thinking while you were speaking about this being an individualized process, and it's kind of like we're all here because we wanted to be here in some level, but so I was kind of envisioning it as like dragging yourself across the sand, and like we get to this human birth after various different lengths of struggle, and then some people drink deep when they get here, and some people just take a taste and they've had enough. Just how the ability to kind of recognize the folly of material entanglement is also recognizing the individualized kind of experiences that we see, without judgment, because that entanglement happens so specifically to everyone. So it's almost a gift in and of itself.
Yes. Thank you for saying that, Prabhu. No, I agree completely. And it's also, I love that you emphasized, we don't want to spiritually bypass, right? This is a bit of a buzzword, some years ago, but we don't want to jump over our humanity, right? So our humanity is actually a very important part of our spiritual becoming also. And even removed from that, we're preparing for darshan, I think. So we'll continue.
Govinda Hari Purusha Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kandam Aravindan Layataksam Bhagavatam Asitam Puranam Mundaram Andar Prabodhi Kamaniya Visheshastobam Govinda Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Anyani Yasya Sakalen Priya Vritti Manti Asyanti Anti Kalyanti Shiram Jaganti Anajat Chinmaya Sadhu Pala Vigrahasya Govinda Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Jai Shri Shri Radha Murlidhar Ki Jai. Shri Gaurachandra Ki Jai. Okay, welcome to the Afterglow. Dina Bandhu Prabhu, if you have a few minutes, please stay with us.
Well, absolutely. I'm a great fan of the Afterglow. So
Okay.
whenever I hear the Afterglow announced in the classes, I'm wondering if there's going to be an Afterglow, and when I hear the Afterglow, I always kind of yes, I feel excited.
Yeah, and see, Vasudev Prabhu is away, so we have a little more freedom, so we can. It's a joke. It's a joke. Let's stick to the boundaries set out by Vasudev Prabhu. Bhima Prabhu is raising his hand.
Hare Krishna, Bhima Prabhu.
Haribo Dina Bandhu Prabhu. Once again, wonderful class. Yesterday, of course, these verses have brought us to this point where we are dealing with this highest priority of issues, and that's facing that the fact that it is our destiny to be vanquished in the physical form. And type. And we've been discussing how wonderful it is, actually. We were sharing yesterday our chances of being there when somebody is at that gate, that straight gate, to enter either into the next life or to go back into Krishna's arms directly, and how each of us have had experiences.
Don't walk too far away from the barn, Bhima Prabhu.
Okay. Am I okay here?
Yeah.
Okay. What a subject matter to break up about. I just wanted to say that I always felt that one of the most important duties we can have is to try to go out of our way to comfort people however we can. We can't convince them that they have to chant Hare Krishna. but we can sort of like usher in that sense of surety that death is not the end of it, and that they have nothing to fear. And that surety, of course, comes from whatever faith that we have. We are people of faith. Faith is real. It's a solid thing. We experience it. We experience Krishna's reciprocation. And then, of course, in experiencing this reciprocation, we're given a great treasure. And then when Krishna, to whom much is given, much is expected. And people like you, Dina Bandhu, who has had chosen as a vocation to be there for people, to offer them, to share that comfort, that security and surety, that everybody has a best friend within their heart, no matter how bad it is that the mind may be torturing them, as it does, tortures all of us, especially with anxiety, doubt, and fear, that someone equipoised and connected to, Krishna's grace is there, as they say, a moment's association with a saintly character, whether we claim to be saintly or not. The fact of the matter is that we at least can reflect, as a mirror does, that light at the end of life that will greet everyone, and that warmth that's there on the other side. And I often think about that because at the age that I'm at, 63, of course, all the relatives start dropping away. And then being on the farm, you have animals, and animals drop away in a moment. And so you just have to become sort of, you have to make amends. And one of those and I'll end this now, one of those amends, Prabhupada always used to say, what is the difficulty? And then that was a very simple statement, but he always said it at the, what is the difficulty? And then he would also say, we are simply dancing, chanting, and feasting. No matter what we're doing, we're dancing, chanting, and feasting. And then on the subject matter of death, we have the secular saying that we can adopt for ourselves, which is eat, drinking, be merry, for tomorrow we may die. So Prabhupada said that a pure devotee can be marked in his behavior by not only being grave and honest and straightforward, but that he's always jolly. And so that we always have to remind ourselves. I wake up every morning with a bit of anxiety. I don't know whether it's inherited, but the first thing in the morning. And so grabbing the beads and chanting Hare Krishna. And today I just went right back to the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, just to remind myself that I'm eternal, just so I could feel good about, just feel secure, to get my feet on the ground, spiritually speaking. And to feel that I can just be happy that this is a play, that this is a drama, that this is a dream, and that Krishna and Lord Chaitanya has come to us and said, Jeev Jago, you're dreaming, wake up, be jolly. This is a movement of great joy, eating, feasting, dancing, chanting, and looking at the beautiful devotees. And looking at the beautiful deities, wherever we may be, to remind us that what awaits us in the end. So thank you very much for instilling and reminding me of these things that I have to remind myself about on a regular basis, just to hang on. So Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Bhima Prabhu. Thank you very, very much. I'm just always really, really touched by the depth of your assimilation of this knowledge, how real it has become for you, how it's moved from gyan to vigyan, from knowledge to realization, and just in a very honest, genuine way. And it means so much to hear from you. And you also always remind me that a Vaishnava is a poet, is kavi. So it's really nice to hear from you, Prabhu. Thank you. Oh, wow, look at that amazing horse.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Radhe, wonderful class, stupendous. We relish just basking in the wisdom and the faith you have and the joy you have, your spiritual masters empowering you. We had an interesting experience with being there at the point of death. We were with Kevala. Remember Kevala?
Yes, I do remember Kabbalah. Yes.
We were in Taiwan uh, collecting donations for the Bhakti Center. So Kevala fell off his bicycle and he injured his back. He had some bone cancer there and the back was broken. And we went to this hospital way up in the mountains, a Buddhist hospital. And they performed a tremendous 6-hour operation on him. He looked like the front of him looked like a baseball and the back of him looked like a football. He had stitches, they put all kinds of metal in there, and he came out, and as he came out of the operating room, he said, "Thank you, Krishna." It's like, okay, well, so, but then, like, see, in that country, if somebody goes in the hospital, you have to stay in the hospital with them. You can't just leave them there, right? So I was like living in the hospital, sleeping on the floor for like 3 or 4 weeks.
Wow.
I was a secretary during the day. But he gradually got to the point where he said, I'm just going to die. I'm going to die. That's it. I'm finished. I give up, He was in a lot of pain. They were giving him Demerol, which is like an opiate, and he was really depressed. And I was drawn, that the death is so intense. It condenses the feelings that, you're really like reaching out to someone at a crisis moment. And so I was really praying to Krishna. I felt myself being drawn into the depression that he had. And I was really praying to Krishna, what should I say? What should I say? And then Krishna gave me something unusual to say that you might think is radical. But it's what happened, it's what I felt like in the class. I'm saying, what should I say? So Krishna said, tell him about Kevala. So I said to him, Kevala, you selfish slob! I'm not going to join your stupid pity party. Get your butt up and get back to work. We got lives to save here. Which was like, he was like, I can't even move out of the bed. So we had this big hospital bed, and we were in this 7-story hospital in Hualien. And I rolled his hospital bed out of the room, and we went from ward to ward to ward to ward to ward to the whole 7 floors of the hospital. People looking at me going down the hallway with a cable. We didn't see anybody with a black body in Taiwan, And we were rolling around into all the wards, and we had these little picture cards with pictures of Buddha, Krishna's incarnation as Buddha, and Kuan Yin. And we went in every single ward, in every room, in every bed. And I said, now you preach to these people, don't be such a selfish person, you're just laying there like a sloth. We have so much to give. You have to engage in devotional service. I'm not just going to sit here and, oh, poor Kevala, yeah, everything's okay. No, get to work, you slob, because Kevala is a heavy guy,
Mm-hmm.
So enlivened, I can't tell you. I mean, he went right from like the point of like just wanted to leave his body to like being in bliss and preaching to people and said, we've got to serve the Lord, chant the holy name. And he was going to every single person. And we're rolling a bed into a ward with 7 or 8 other beds. And he was going from bed to bed to bed. And these people are like suffering and sick, and yet he was enlivening them and engaging them. So, I mean, that's a little different radical. I've had a few other people that, I don't want to talk too long. I've had 2 other incidents of devotees. Of course, if somebody is a devotee, you can preach like that. Get to work, do some service. Don't just sit there and soak in your own self-pity, And it worked. I couldn't find it in myself to say it, but that's what Krishna gave me to say, so I'll just share that. Well, glory to Prabhupada, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, all glories to Prabhupada. Thank you. Adi Purusha Prabhupada. Really remarkable story, and just really astounding the way that Krishna guided you in that way, and the fact that it did help. It helped Kevala Bhakti Prabhu. That's amazing. I mean, just and to picture that.
Rob, I'm not joining your pity party. Cut it out. Get to work.
Very briefly, how did Kevala Bhakti Prabhu leave? What was his departure like?
Well, he went back to India. He got married. He had a son. He was doing some service. He was even doing Harinam in he said, went down the same streets where Lord Chaitanya did Harinam, but his body was deteriorating. And he actually met the head pujari from Lord Jagannath's temple in Jagannath Puri. And he said, I saw this wonderful person, this effulgent personality. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and we ran toward each other, and we embraced. And then he came to my house, and we was laying in the same bed together, chanting, and I was like, Kevala. He had some unusual pastime. When he was here, he determined that he was going to chant Hare Krishna and get at least one tear, because he heard if you don't cry, then his heart is steel frame. So he was screaming and yelling in the temple room to try to get himself to cry. So finally we said, Kevala, nobody else can chant with all your screaming. Go up on the roof. So he went up on the roof and he was chanting up there. And 6 policemen came from a building next door. Somebody was dying up there, was getting murdered or something. And then we finally put him in the walk-in cooler downstairs in the basement.
Wow.
Crazy. I gotta go right now, okay? Hare Krishna, glories to Prabhupada.
Thank you so much, Hare Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
We hope Kevala Bhakti Prabhu didn't leave this world in the walk-in cooler.
Yeah. Next time I'm in the walk-in cooler at the Bhakti Center, I'm gonna feel that holy name reverberating.
I have a very short story that I think is very appropriate.
Here's another wild afterglow.
Yeah. Kevala Bhakta was on a Sankirtan party traveling across the United States in the dead of winter, northern United States, with a devotee who was basically a sannyasi, an incredible devotee, Chedi Raj. We used to call him Chedi Raj Maharaj, even though he was just a brahmachari, and Mathura. And because it was so cold in those days, this was the early 80s, because it was so cold, all we had to heat the van was, of course, the propane Coleman stove. And sometimes we would run that in the van, thinking that cracking the windows was enough air. Anyways, long story short, what happened was they were parked overnight, and somehow the flame got blown out, but the propane kept flowing in. And Chedi Raj, and they were parked in such a place that they weren't found until the end of the weekend. And Chedi Raj had passed out with a Bhagavatam in his hand. He was reading at the front wheel. He was found not passed out, dead at the front wheel of the van. Mathura had Chedi Raj. Remember, this is 3 people in a van living. So 2 slept on bins and 1 slept on the floor, and Kevala slept on the floor. Mathura had, in his death throes, rolled over and landed on top of Kevala. And at the end of the 3 days, what had happened was Kevala tells the story, because he survived. He was the only survivor. He tells the story that he only remembers this, and that is he felt himself being pulled out of the van by his shoulders. And he remembers looking and seeing a great white light with green grass stretching into the distance, and that he saw Chedi Raj, who we were all very close with, Chedi Raj and Mathura, running off into the distance and waving towards him, "Come along, come along." They were running into this lit field, and Chedi and Kevala said that he wanted to go, but he couldn't, because people were holding him by the shoulders. These were the police that were dragging, after they found them, were dragging him from the van. And so he was unable, so to speak, that it wasn't his time to go. So Kevala Bhakta was quite the character, as can be attested by Adi. But I thought that was very reassuring, you know, that here were the devotees waving him, saying, come along, and he couldn't come along. There was still life, as you could see, lots of life, lots of experience, lots of devotional service to do in this world, whether it be from a bed in Taiwan, a hospital bed in Taiwan, or on the streets where Lord Chaitanya worked. He still had some unfinished business, but he was able to relate that story, which is always something that I refer. And of course, I'm sure Dina, Bandhu, you're probably familiar with near-death experience and how reassuring it is that people who come to that edge and are told to or allowed to come back tell of the fact that on the other side is nothing but love, nothing but light, nothing but love, and you're greeted personally. Every single person, every single near-death experience that I have ever heard or read or seen on video, they were all personal experiences, that there were spirits on the other side just made out of love, waiting to greet us. So I just thought I'd mention that, since we were talking about Kevala and of course passing into our next life. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for sharing that story, Bhima Prabhu. Very meaningful, and as you said, very reassuring to hear, you know, that experience that Kevala Bhakti Prabhu had. And thank you for sharing about the loss of your friends. And I appreciate you sharing so personally.
Thank you, Prabhu. We had Angel.
Angel had a hand up. Yes.
Yes, I did. I feel a bit shy going after something so wonderful as what Bhima had shared here, but I'd wanted to comment on Adi. Actually, he left, so hopefully someone will be able to pass the message on. First of all, he doesn't talk too long. I could listen to him talk forever. It brings me so much joy. He says, I talk too much. No, keep talking, Adi. It's so beautiful. And then also, Adi talking is in a male body and I'm in a female body. So we process things a bit different in life, right? But here we have a person who's sick, laying in bed, and he's there, if you will, lighting a fire under their ass and literally dragging them around, having them do this work. Oh, what a blessing. I wish I had this in my life. I for feminine reasons take to bed and cloister myself down, and I wish I had someone to come and light this fire under me and to drag me around to do my duty. Oh, if only. So he is more of a blessing than he realizes. And Bhima, you too, you also use these strong words and empower me. Thank you.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Angel. Thank you for sharing with such heart, such eagerness. Yes. We pray that you feel that empowerment, that eagerness, that motivation coming from Krishna and his devotees. So great. And I completely agree that Adi Purusha Prabhu and Bhima Prabhu, I could listen to them speak endlessly. So I agree. Thank you so much.
There's something here that people see as sharpness or harshness, and it can be a very good blessing. So I want to get them in the mindset that it's if a little mean is not always a bad thing. It can move us. It can move us very well.
Thank you very much, Angel, for your heartfelt share. I totally second your statement that strong words, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, at least, you know, for some people. That's every time I throw a pity party and I call Adi, that's what he does to me, always. He never consoles me. He just says, you're in Maya. You know, did you chant? Did you read? Did you do service? Did you tell somebody about bhakti today? Yeah, and I have nothing to, I can't argue with that. It's hard to argue with that. But like you said, in Bandhu Prabhu, we don't want to spiritually bypass. You have to have a big heart to be able to speak strongly. Like Bhima and Dadi, they have big hearts. They can afford it. But us, we should be careful, considering, and sometimes bold when we think it's appropriate. Like Srila Prabhupada says, it takes intelligence to figure out when it's appropriate to say something strong, when it's appropriate to show care. So let's all pray to Srila Prabhupada and to our Guru to give us intelligence to speak to people in such a way that they can relate and benefit, whether it be strong words or consoling words, or just hearing them like Dina Bandhu, like you do. Thank you very much. Wonderful class, wild afterglow. Let's all ask forgiveness for our offenses after class. We want to make it
Hare
ahead.
Krishna.
Thank you. Any final instructions, Dina Bandhu?
No, it's just really grateful to join with everyone. And yes, the afterglow was out of this world, and I really just appreciate everybody's honest sharing and openness, and also, like you said, Ananda Bihari Prabhu, just wanted to second your statement that strong words spoken with good intentions for kind of, really, if a devotee, especially from a senior devotee, if they're really praying that we continue to make progress and they speak strong words to us, with the intention of uplifting us. Yeah, there's nothing wrong there. It's something that, can really wake us up, as we spoke about even with these verses today. They're kind of strong words as well. So yeah, just wonderful.
Thank you. Dinabandhu Prabhu ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, strong words, consoling words, transcendental words ki jai, transcendental smiles of devotees, Amrita Kishori, Damodar Priya, Vinish, everybody's smiling. Gautam Ghosh is smiling. I can see that under his mustache. Jeffrey Eckler. Okay, and Dana, Krishna's Radharani, Angela, Susan, Kartik, Bruce, all the people online. Karen and family, Hare Krishna, we love you. Hare Krishna. See you again tomorrow.